When it comes to handling negative emotions, a lot of times we set ourselves up for sabotage and we go through the process of retracking things, going and putting ourselves back in the middle of the experience and reliving these stories over and over and over. And on this twin flame journey, we tend to look back at how we handled something and judge ourselves and think that we did something wrong and that there's technically a right way to do it. And then once we end up in that loop, then sometimes it's hard to break out of that loop because we keep ourselves trapped in the emotion that builds up and it expands and it shifts into anger and guilt and even shame. And we then attempt to try to get ourselves back on track, but getting out of that negative loop can be feeling like you're sucked in. So this is something that I see typically with empaths and dealing with emotional trauma. And today, what I want to talk about is the best way to handle these negative emotions so you can get back on track. But know that this is a part in a series of my Healing Your Trauma for Empaths. So stay tuned over the next few weeks because I'm going to be delivering some information that can really help you learn how to handle what's coming up so you're not hanging on to it and you can let it go as things are coming through you. Hello, fellow flames. In case we haven't met, my name is Dr. Harmony, and I will help you live fearless, live loved, and live free. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when all my videos and content come live. So before we jump into the best way to handle negative emotions, I'd like to share some super exciting news for you. JULIAN and I will be in Ridgefield, Connecticut at the Angel Co-op on November 4th and 5th. There we're going to be doing live in-person healing sessions. I'll be doing readings. He'll be doing body attunements. And in addition to that, we'll both be doing a workshop. He will be doing a workshop on healing for empaths, and I'll be doing a twin flame workshop. And so if you're in the area or close by the Connecticut area, all the links to access and sign up directly through the Angel Co-op will be in the description below. So check that out. In addition to that, as part of this series, I want to share with you something else very exciting. So JULIAN has been working for at least 15 years on healing trauma with his clients and with himself, and I've experienced it with him, and then me as a chiropractic background has done the same. So we're kind of joining in here to help offer some healing trauma tips. I'm going to be going through the kind of the mental aspect, kind of the more thought of the techniques and the tips and the tools that you can implement into your daily life as far as how you can handle the emotions. But something he's going to put together that stay tuned for next week. Make sure to mark your calendar. And if you've not already hit the subscribe and that notification bell, be on tune because next week he's going to put together a video for you that you can watch, and he's going to help give you some body attunement tips and walk you through some things you can do in order to decrease your sensitivity, to come back into your power, to harness your energy, and to come into your body, because a lot of this is about being separated from your body. And it's about integrating the body, the breath, the brain with the being and bringing that into balance. And he's going to be sharing some tips of some trainings he's taken with Qigong and yoga and modern fitness science so that you can implement these things into your practice. So make sure to check out his link below and also stay tuned for next week's video. And then I'll be following up some other tips as we move forward in this series. So we're going to talk about ways that typically we handle our emotions, and then we're going to talk about the one way that we should be handling it. So the first way that most people handle their emotions is they avoid it. I mean, I don't know about you, but this is something I have suppressed my emotions my whole life, and that has built up and created the trauma within the body and the nervous system and put myself in a state of that fight or flight constantly. So these things start to become conscious things that are running, but mainly even unconscious things that are running because they're so buried inside. And then we try to escape. We try to avoid things. Some people go as far as, the addiction and addictive personalities and, turn to drugs and alcohol, but know that it can be anything. I know for me, one of the things I've done most of my life is stayed super busy in a place of working. And that by working, it's sort of like a way of creative avoidance because I stay engaged, I stay focused, I stay into something. And I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but know that too much of anything can be a bad thing. And it's a way to avoid feeling things. It's a way to avoid connecting to the emotions that are basically then allowing those emotions to control you. But the better solution really is to acknowledge the emotion, for you to give it room to come in to your space, to allow you to feel it, see it, heal it, understand it. And then the key in that is to deal with the underlying cause that's below all of what it is that you're avoiding. And so when we get to one of this series we're going to talk about, I'm going to walk you through some steps in order to really retrace these things and how to identify these things so you can actually reprogram your triggers and your emotions. So you're going to want to watch that video in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So piggybacking that, then we tend to pretend the emotion is not there. This is kind of like building a coping mechanism in a different way, because what we do is we deny ourselves from feeling the negative side of this, which is what I was kind of saying. If you follow me very long, I have avoided and pretended emotions aren't there in a sense, not consciously, but keeping in mind these things can also be unconsciously happening because you're creating the mechanism and the resource and the way you process this. And you don't even realize you've created the pathway. And then when you have the pathway mentally, and that emotion then creates a pathway internalizing it through your nervous system that keeps things firing in that fight or flight, as I mentioned. And so you're denying yourself the ability to experience that. And therefore, because you're ignoring that side of you, you're separating from the side of you that really wants to be heard, understood, acknowledged, basically. So this is where a lot of the abandonment issues come from, because we're not accepting what it is we feel. And then we kind of shove it to the side, and that's rejecting how we truly feel. And then that's not being our authentic self. So our soul is, standing up in this and putting us in the position to say, hey, there's a side of me that really wants to be heard right now. So the third way we handle the emotions, sometimes in a negative aspect, is actually becoming the emotion. And that means that those emotions can be so powerful that they overtake us and they become a part of who we are. And that means we integrate with that negativity in such a way that we start to identify and make claims on who we are. Like if you've got a lot of anger and you've stuffed and you haven't listened to it, and then you start to say something and then you just identify with, in your responses, I'm just a mad person. I'm just an angry person. Sometimes, I'm not going to say everyone here does this, but a lot of times there are people out there that kind of brag about these things, or they keep talking about these things, or that is nothing but their identity of these things. So the solution in that is to let yourself feel and to process it and to talk it out, and to identify with it. But don't become it. Don't let it overrule you. Allow the emotion to come through you and move on. Don't attach to it. Don't identify with it. Don't label yourself with it. And a really good way to help you with this would also be to start encouraging, positive emotions or feelings or, thoughts into your daily practice of the things you experience. So allowing something to come in, say, from a negative side, and then replace that negative experience, thought, feeling, or emotion with something that's positive. So you're actually starting that reprogramming process, and you're becoming more of the positive side in place of identifying and becoming that negative emotion. So now the fourth way and the best way to learn to manage these negative emotions is to learn from them. to see these as your teacher. The learning process then of your emotions is probably the best and the strongest technique that you could ever use out there, because everything we go through, whether conscious or unconscious, or the experiences and the teachers we have show up, including the twin flame, all of these things are a mirror of ourselves. And so taking the time to really identify with who you are through these experiences that are coming up, and realizing that even though it feels like a negative emotion, that maybe it's not such a bad thing, and that we can use them as a useful tool to help us navigate life and what we want, and to teach ourselves about ourselves. And then that opens up an entirely new door. So now we can begin to see different possibilities, and we can use the feelings as the navigational system, and that they're, an educational tool. And most importantly, that we're taking back the power in the change that we have over ourselves to move into more positive ways, rather than letting it control us and take over our lives. And it's a choice. So choosing to stay in power, and then knowing that when you have such an emotion as feeling angry, and maybe you feel like there's an injustice in something, and you could then take that anger and turn it into fuel that can become the positive motivator to help you change what the circumstances are through the process of transmuting it, transferring it, and transcending that lower frequency into a higher frequency that can feed you in such a way that it actually gives you momentum to rise up into your greater, better, next level of version of who you came here to be and what you came here to have and do. So by all means, try to avoid the judgment about these negative emotions, and try to step out and become the observer instead of falling into the trap of these repetitive cycles of sabotage, and truly learn to identify with the idea that what you feel is literally a part of you, and that you literally can learn from that if you will take the time to integrate with it, to feel it, to allow it, to accept it, most importantly. And that's going to make you more whole, complete, and one within yourself. So thank you for watching, and make sure that you check out all the links below so you can see us in Connecticut if you're available, and also check out the ways to glow forward with myself and Julian on some body attunement healing and some coaching if you need that. And may you always face your fears, find freedom, and glow forward on fire. Namaste.